All right, good evening, everyone. This is Robert with the Space Coast Rocket. We're just sharing to a couple of groups here so that we get some more people engaged here. But we are continuing our one-on-one series with our candidates that are running for office for this upcoming election. Um, Tonight, we're doing a one-on-one interview with Keith. Is it Schachter?
Yes.
Keith Schachter. Keith Schachter is running for school board in District 3. Is it
Four?
District 4. District 4, for those that don't know, has recently been kind of districtized. Is that a word? Districtized?
There's definitely been a little bit of reshaping of the districts.
Right. All right. So especially for District 4 and District 3, those boundaries kind of changed. And I believe what they said their intent was to try to line the district maps up with the county commission maps. Right. So if you're in county commission 4, you're in school board district 4. But they ended up kind of confusing people too that are already knew what districts they were in. So
we'll see. A lot of confusion out there for sure.
Yeah, a lot of confusion. But anyway, so this is our opportunity to get one-on-one interviews with the candidates, find out what their positions are, find out what's their motivations to run, and talking about their races. So it's up to you. What do you give us your spiel? Why are you running?
Well, I'll start off first by telling you who I am and what we do and why I'm running. So I'm Keith Schachter. I spent 17 years in the public school system as a teacher. So 10 years I spent as a classroom teacher in 2 different counties, in Broward and Brevard.
Okay.
In Brevard County in 2012, I was proud to be one of 6 finalists for Teacher of the Year.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty awesome.
Okay.
And that year I got my master's degree and got my master's degree in ed leadership. And I spent 7 years in outside the classroom in Brevard County in several roles. I was a magnet school coordinator for Stone Magnet Middle School when that grant came about through the federal government. I also was a magnet school coordinator for Palm Bay Magnet High School, and I spent 2 years as an assistant principal dean of discipline for 2 middle schools. Andrew Jackson Middle School, and in a high school, Palm Bay Magnet High School. So I spent 17 years in various capacities working in the schools. And in the last 4 years, Robert, I started a company that is contracted to sell advertising for the schools. I saw a need throughout my time in the schools that we were always in a situation where we were underfunded.
Right.
And so, having a background in advertising sales, it gave me an understanding of, hey, the school districts are actually a really good medium, and we can help raise money for schools and make things better. And so we've been doing that for the last 4 years. I've been doing that. And I'm proud to say we've raised over $1 million of unrestricted funds for schools.
Wow.
So I've been working. So my entire adult life has been dedicated to public school. So I'm really passionate about it. And the reason why I'm running is, I've always had aspirations to influence systemic change in the system. That's why I started this company,
right?
Because I saw a need of problems with budget. The schools are always needing money. So it's always been my ambition to inject systemic change in our schools. And so in the last 4 years, I'm to be honest with you, I'm tired of watching the circus. There's just too many negative politics that have infiltrated our schools. It's gotten ugly. We have board members, not, arguing with other board members. We have public comment, people coming in and attacking the public's board members. It's not, in my opinion, how we make progress in our schools. It's too divisive. And that is the main catalyst that has influenced me to want to run. I've always wanted to help, but now I really think they need our help. We need someone who's going to come in to our school system and inject a sense of positive, a positive, collaborative person that's going to be able to work with people on all sides of the aisle so that we can focus on what matters most, and that's our students.
I do remember it wasn't in the far too distant past where school boards were boring. People didn't even think about school board meetings anymore. Now they've become like the octagon in a UFC fight or something. It's just like, what are we going to see next? What do you think has caused that divisiveness and that kind of inflammatory things that are going on up there on the dais?
I mean, I have a degree and my background's in social science a little bit. So, it's been interesting to watch
Right.
the change. I can't, I think there's a lot of factors involved. I mean, I don't think we can discredit just how significant the pandemic was on human behavior.
Right.
I mean,
Right. It's a good
you
point.
go back to the pandemic. You had, before the pandemic, there wasn't all this bickering and all this sort of stuff. And so the pandemic put our school system on every school system in the country on a pedestal to be looked at, because it forced schools, through shutting down schools, it forced schools to have to pivot and deliver online curriculum and change everything
Right.
at the drop of a dime based on a decision to close the schools.
Right.
And so that focused a lot of attention on the schools. And then when the schools weren't able to deliver on that, of course, the public was like, hey, regardless of whether my school is closed, my kids should learn this or that.
Right.
And now they're not learning anything. And so what it's led to is a lot of opportunities in other areas, school choice options, vouchers, all these sort of programs now that are out there to get more students out of the school system. And so it's a very competitive arena. And so I think the pandemic change things, because you had a lot of people that were very passionate on one side or the other in regards to things as, wearing masks and all that other sort of stuff. So, it injected, everybody's at home sitting around and, I think people went a little crazy.
Yeah. Got cabin fever on top of it, right?
So I think that's what sort of started it. But now that we've gotten past it, it exposed the deficiencies
right
in our system.
Right.
And so and now it's still, the school systems are still front and center in the public eye, because even though the pandemic is over, they're still saying, they're still looking at stuff, and they're still, and so, the politics changed in the last 4 years. No one could argue that there hasn't been a lot more passionate people on both sides of the aisle,
right,
as it relates to this stuff. And so, I guess I attribute a lot of that to the pandemic. But
well, yeah, you're making some great points, and you're kind of unpacking a lot of things. We're going off of the questions here a little bit, but one of the things that you brought up was discipline. And discipline at Brevard Public Schools right now has been a really hot topic issue. And I think when the I don't want to say administration, but when the current school board started after this last election, they did that infamous video in front of the sheriff's jail. They're talking about discipline. This is going to be the most prolific discipline, and they haven't stopped talking about it since. What do you think is causing some of the discipline issues that we're seeing in the Brevard Public Schools?
Well, you know what? I don't think the discipline issues are as bad as what everyone's saying.
Right.
Okay. Yes, you're talking to somebody. I was a dean of discipline at two very challenging schools. I've always worked in challenging schools. There's a lot of reasons. It's hard to pinpoint the explanation. It has a lot to do with, obviously, they decided to choose phones. They attacked the whole phone thing. There was a lot of reports. There was things where kids. I have a lot to say about this. So,
you're fine.
There's a lot of So you have a situation where I think in the past there was so much emphasis. The school system is so obsessed with data that it hurts them. Okay, so prior to this discipline problem that we're having, we were so obsessed with the data, and people are looking at the data, and people say, this group is disproportionately being suspended. This group is, is not being treated fairly and equitably. And so you have a lot of groups that are looking at the data, and then they draw conclusions, and so it has forced school officials to make some compromising decisions that are probably not in the best interest of all, because you have, like, I've always felt as a dean very vulnerable in the schools, because all it takes is one wrong move, and the next thing you're on the chopping blocks,
Right.
and you're the bad guy.
Right.
And so I when you put the system in a position to have to make these sort of decisions, sometimes the decisions that are made are not popular, and it causes a lot of backlash, and it might even not be popular with the students. And so I've just seen that there has been a disconnect in behavior. But I will say the answer is not what they did, which was, let's stand in front of a jail and tell, and say we're going to get hard on discipline. That's not how you fix the problem.
Right.
Because you have to have a plan. There was no plan. It was just, we're going to get hard on discipline, and kids can't use their phones anymore, and that's it. So there was no systemic plan. So if you're going to implement changes to student behavior, you need to have a discipline plan that's well thought out. You have to have, everyone needs to understand it, from the kids, the teachers, the parents, the administrators. To implement an effective discipline plan, everybody has to be on the same page. And that takes several years to implement. It's not like, hey, we're going to get hard on discipline, I'm here in front of the jail.
Right. Yeah.
That just, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And so the numbers reflected that we have not gotten harder on discipline. And my opinion on the behavior is the kids are bored. When you have a curriculum that's so watered down, or if everyone is so focused on answering the right questions on a test,
right,
I don't care how long you go back. Kids are kids are kids.
Right.
Kids were the same in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, and now it's 2000, and then we're in the 2020s. When kids are bored, they act up. So I don't think it's a behavioral problem. I think it's a school systemic problem, and we need to do a better job of making our curriculum more engaging.
I think I mean, you bring a unique perspective because of your history as a dean and in some challenging schools. And I think you're opening people's eyes to what the problem really looks like from the inside. And, a lot of people have problems disciplining their own children, let alone putting together some kind of cookie cutter policy to discipline children from all different kinds of social economic backgrounds, all kind of different interpersonal relationship issues. So it's definitely something to think about. And I think you bringing up the kids getting bored is probably a really good point. That could be the emphasis of a lot of the problems that we're seeing. If we can keep them engaged, we probably eliminated a large percentage of the problems we're having.
Without question, that is the number one issue to solve, and how do you fix student behavior is engagement. And I think that the school system has taken the wrong approach for the longest time. Typically, it's like, I can't control all these kids. They're on their phones and they're, doing this or that.
Right,
we live in the 2024.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody and so, banning anything, it just doesn't work. Right. So you tell a 3-year-old to not touch something, they're going to touch it. Right. So, I don't think that we have taken the right steps to addressing the behaviors. Banning things or cracking down and saying no more tolerance, and we're gonna treat the kids like we treat our criminals. That's not how it's supposed to be. We need to implement sensible policy. Everybody needs to be on the same page with it. We need to include people in the process. It can't just be, we're going to get harder on discipline and don't include the teachers, the administrators, the parents, and the students.
Right.
Everybody should get involved in the process, and that's just never done. And so if we fix our engagement problem and get kids more interested in what they're learning, the behavior is going to go down. And then we don't have such an issue. But right now they're just bored. I think teachers are bored teaching.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some of the curriculums confusing to me for my kids doing some of this math that I've never seen before. But I mean, they get it. I just can't help them with it too much. But I can imagine that, doing the same thing over and over again at such kind of a non-challenging level just causes
It's the
problems.
definition of insanity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing the same thing over and over again. And think about the kids that don't succeed, right? I mean, so our system is also focused on, and don't take this the wrong way, there's nothing more important than literacy, reading, and
Right. Yeah.
But when everything is predicated on reading and math scores, reading and math scores, reading and math scores, the first thing we're taught as teachers is Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, and we say that everybody has different talents. Someone could be musically talented. Some kid could pick up a saxophone and in a day or two figure out how to play it. How do you explain that?
Right.
That's an innate talent that's from within.
Right.
That's not tested. We're only testing 2 or 3 different types of talents in what we've learned. There's 9 or 10 of,
Right.
and so imagine all the kids that aren't innately talented in reading or math, and all they're doing is taking reading and math
Right.
tests, and then they start giving them tests and they fail. I call it the kick dog syndrome. You keep kicking your dog, eventually it's going to just it's not going to respond, or it's going to react in a behavioral way to defend itself. And so we are not providing enough opportunities for a wide spectrum of talented people. Our system is so focused on a couple things, and I think that's also leading to the behavioral problems. The kids keep, and then what we do as school system leaders is, when someone doesn't perform well in reading or math, the people that are the leaders say, Johnny, what we're going to do is give you more of what you're not good at,
Right.
because you need to get a higher score on this test.
Right.
And what I feel is that's selfish.
Yeah.
We are remediating our students constantly in the things that they're not good at. And in doing so, we're taking away opportunities for that kid to maybe take another class.
Right. Excel
like
somewhere
music
else. Right.
or something else,
Right.
the arts. And so our system has been operating in the past for so long. I'm just tired of it.
I mean, it's definitely a topic we could spend
A lot of time on.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing those thoughts with
Yeah.
us. Back to some of the questions that we had here. Like, so what are the top 3 issues? And we kind of hit on some of them already. The top 3 issues facing our schools, and how do you plan to address them?
Okay. Well, student enrollment is a problem that no one's talking about, and it's declining at a rate that's scary. Now, most of the public doesn't know this, but when you have declining student enrollment, you have a budget crisis. Okay.
Right.
And so we talked a little bit about the pandemic and all that sort of stuff. And, you have a lot of online learning options, virtual schools, you have voucher programs. All these things are intercepting our students from schools. And you've seen the enrollment declining.
Mhm.
When you have declining student enrollment, you don't have the budget to pay the teachers. You don't have the budget to revamp the curriculum. You don't have the budget for a lot of anything, because
Right.
the way school systems work is we count our kids, we report it to this district, the district reports it to the state releases the funds, and that's how it works.
Right.
So the number one problem is declining student enrollment. So we have to address that by making our schools more attractive. Okay. So we have to make our schools more attractive by making our curriculum more diverse. The parents are choosing not to send their kids to public school for a reason.
Mhm.
Let's just call a spade a spade.
Right.
They are making the decision because they don't feel that the public schools are serving their children's best interests. And maybe that's because they're so obsessed with what I just talked
Right,
about
the reading,
before.
right, yeah.
So what I would do is try to diversify our curriculum, work with, figure out a way to start to evaluate what we're offering course-wise to our kids.
Right.
Get teachers involved and find out ways we can interject more, engaging content within the curriculum that we have to teach, because the state does dictate what you have to teach. So
Right.
you can't ignore that. But I think we need to do a much better job with, and that's the second part of this is the engagement piece. So we need to fix the curriculum, and obviously we also have to address the teacher shortage issue.
Right.
It's a crisis. It's crisis mode. And the only way we're going to be able to fix the teacher crisis thing is to obviously make the work conditions better, give them more autonomy so that they can teach. They got a degree for a reason. Let's stop putting them in a box and telling them they must teach this way and read this script, and it's all about the test.
And they're even threatened with criminal charges, with some of the things that have recently been passed through the legislature now. So I can imagine how difficult it is to be a teacher at this time.
Teachers are terrified. It's a crazy world right now to be a teacher. And then obviously I was a teacher and a dean, and so it was challenging to be a dean too, because I always, when if there was a fight that broke out, I wasn't going to let these kids beat each other up.
Right.
But it's like they tell you, don't let them fight.
Yeah.
Because if as soon as you get
them
involved, it's like, oh, he grabbed me wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden you're in a situation, so
and they're going to be in a viral video that on the Space Coast Rocket.
It's just crazy. So it's a big challenge, but we need to fix the declining student enrollment problem. We do that by making our schools more attractive. Schools need to start doing a better job of advertising and marketing themselves. Charter schools do it, private schools do it. Our public schools are sitting around and they're not doing it. There are a lot of great programs in Brevard public schools. And how well are we marketing those programs? Probably not as good as we can, as good as we should.
Right.
And so we just need to we need to attract the kids back in the system. That's what's going to fix everything. But there's a lot of work in a lot of other areas. So please don't take that as everything situation. So I'm going to check myself on that.
This next question kind of rolls into what you were just talking about, is what measures will you take to support and retain quality teachers?
Well, I get what we've talked about. I mean, you don't come, people that, when I became a teacher, I was on my way to making six figures as an advertising sales executive.
Right.
I chose the profession, and I knew I was not going to make as much money. I did it because I wanted to make a difference. And so people don't choose the profession for the money, and the money needs to get fixed, by the way. So I want to make that very clear to any teachers who are listening or watching to this today. We have to do a better job. Brevard County does an awful job paying its teachers. The Florida ranks 50th out of 50 in the nation in teacher pay. I mean, it's ridiculous. So teachers need to be able to pay their bills.
Right.
But they also should be working in an environment that's collaborative, that's autonomous. They have the autonomy to teach things. They're not being told what to teach, how to teach it, where to teach it. We are placing our educators in the proverbial box, and nobody wants to work in that environment. If you find someone that wants to work in a box, I would challenge you to find that person, right? So I don't care what the industry is. We have to give our teachers autonomy and independence. Yes, we have to hold them to certain standards. Yes, we have to be able that they have to be teaching the right content. There is a process to evaluate those teachers, but they shouldn't be terrified every day they go to work.
I think just like we talk about the students having their own individual talents, I think teachers themselves have their own individual talents. And we have to be able to give them an environment where they can let their talents shine. I think everybody's had a teacher, everybody. And I think a lot of people don't realize that some students spend more times with their teachers than their families,
That's
than
right.
their parents. And I can name 2 or 3 teachers off the top of my head that have impacted my life. And I think everybody can. And we have to make sure we give teachers the environment where they can still continue to have those effects on students, those positive effects on students.
Absolutely. And what's interesting about a lot of those teachers? A lot of those teachers, I mean, they might have been content teachers, and when I say content teachers, as a teacher, that's everything.
Right.
Okay. So I put the physical education teacher on the same platform as the English language arts teachers. Coaches, you have some kids that maybe are not succeeding in the classroom or not doing what they need to do, or they're struggling in the reading and math, but they're great athletes.
Yeah.
The coaches can be the single most influential factor in whether that kid ends up in jail or dead,
right,
or graduated with a degree going on to something.
right.
And not every kid is going to be a successful athlete, but the value of the coach relationship with the kid is paramount. It's the same thing with the teachers, the arts teachers and stuff like that. And I feel like a lot, if you ask most adults to reflect on a lot of the teachers that had that impact on them, of course they're going to talk, they'll have some examples of their core teachers, that you're reading, language arts, math, science,
right,
social studies stuff, but I would bet there's a lot of people who talk about their chorus teacher or their band director,
right,
or their football coach or their soccer person, or and so we just, if we're only focused on the reading and the language arts and not everything else, what are we saying to those teachers too? So you're right, Robert. We do need to value teachers in the same regards that we value students, because we all are humans,
yeah,
and we have the variety of talents, and we all have different interests and different talents, and we need to do a better job of fostering a system that embraces the talents and beautiful qualities of all people.
it's very well said. This is a good one here. Is what strategies will you use to increase parental involvement in schools?
It's 2024, Robert. I think a lot of the times we struggle with parental involvement because, I can't tell you how many times I've sat in at, like an open house night.
Right.
We do open house the same every year.
Yeah.
We're going to have open house on this night at 6:00. And usually this in the schools where there's more affluent pockets of folks, it's packed.
Yeah.
I've always worked on the other side, if you will, and I was happy to get 4 parents that came through to meet me.
Yeah.
And I don't blame the parents. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's the parents." No, it's not the parents. Those parents, maybe they're not there in those kids' life, or maybe they have 2 jobs,
right,
because
or 3.
they didn't,
Yeah.
So, but if you say parent open house is at this time, sometimes people can't make those adjustments. So, but it's 2024. So what I would do is hold more regular town halls, maybe monthly, if you will,
Yeah.
and allow people to participate using the platforms that are accessible to us at all times. So we shouldn't just give credit to the parents that are able to show up. That doesn't really reflect the whole picture. We need to do a better job of getting the parental involvement from the parents that don't typically show up. Find out why they're not showing up,
Right.
and modify our behavior to adapt to those parents. And so we have a lot of technology tools at our disposal to be able to do that. And as somebody who's always championed technology in the classroom, if elected as a school board member, I would utilize some creative ways to get more parents involved.
Because I'm such a boring person, I spend a lot of time watching government meetings, school board,
Yeah.
city council and whatnot. And a lot of things that I see being discussed by the public at these school board meetings are things that should probably be discussed at their schools. So it seems like the issues that they're bringing to the school board, they need to be bringing those to their principals. So maybe you're right about the town hall thing. Like if these principals held kind of like a school board meeting, but for their schools, and allow parents to come in and kind of express their concerns, I think a lot of these things will be mitigated. And every school is different. I grew up right next to Stone, so I know what you mean. And then we lived right in, when we first moved back here, we lived right by Manatee. We went to Manatee. So it's
Sure.
a huge different demographic, huge different set of issues and problems.
Sure.
And so I think addressing those at a school board meeting might not be as productive as addressing at the local level.
And you know what? When you don't have enough variety and you don't, it takes effort to engage the parents.
Right.
And, I know a lot of people are always pointing the fingers at the parents, and, there is an unfair burden on our schools to almost be the parents in some respects. I see it all the time in chat rooms and on forums and stuff. And, it's all about the parents involved. And so you're right, the parents are important, but you know what? I've been like a dad to a lot of kids that didn't have dads as a teacher, like what we were talking about earlier. And, the only time sometimes I got an opportunity to connect with those parents sometimes is when we were like in an administrative hearing and we're having to deal with some behavioral consequence because I was the dean and I might have had that kid previous, and the mom would always say, if the mom was there, they would thank me and say, we thank you so much for all that you've done for my child. What you've done is speaking volumes, but I'm so sorry. I just can't, I got 2 jobs and so we just need to do a better job of giving parents a platform and being a little bit more flexible in how we give that platform and not always rely on them necessarily showing up. I mean, you could send out little survey. I mean, the schools are always sending out surveys, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't always have to be, I'm going to raise all these concerns at the board meeting, but I think that's indicative of if these people are coming to the board meetings, raising these concerns on a consistent basis, I don't think they're just doing that just to do it.
Right.
It's explaining that there's a systemic problem.
Yeah.
If their voices are not being heard locally, then they're going to bring it up a notch.
Yeah, you're right.
And so I think you make a great point, and maybe principals ought to do a little bit more in terms of engaging the parents and getting feedback. It's not like just because I ask for your feedback doesn't mean I'm going to implement your ideas.
Right.
But just by asking your feedback, I always say this, my favorite thing, I say it all the time, and it's my favorite quote, and I think it was by an anonymous person, but this is how we should all live. The collective intelligence of the room is far greater than any one individual. And so, we need to do a better job of getting parents' feedback, community members' feedback, business people's feedback. For too long, the school systems operate in their own little silo.
Yeah.
And they're not doing enough to get other people's perspectives in. Like how many people are really experts financially in the school system?
Right.
Very few.
Right.
But we're managing $1 billion budget. Why are we not soliciting feedback from people in the business community? The people like, this Paris in our backyard, Northrop Grumman, we have SpaceX. I mean, we have a lot of very talented people in our backyard. We ought to be getting feedback from them too.
Oh, yeah.
Just the parents. We have to produce kids that are ultimately going to be working for these local companies. And all those companies, Robert, they say the same thing. They complain all the time about they don't have personnel. They're having shortages. So we have teacher shortages, but so too we have shortages all over the place. Right. So there needs to be more of this. We need to bring the ideas together so that we can produce coursework and inject the certain types of life skills that are going to be conducive to someone being successful in the companies that are in our backyard.
And I think, it's definitely a fixable problem. They say it's not rocket science, but fortunately we live in a county full of rocket scientists.
That's right.
So we should be able to fix this,
right?
If we engage them, right?
We should. And so it's about, but if you keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, it's not going to change. And so we need to take a hard look in the mirror. And I'm one candidate who's willing to say on camera, I'm not trying to sugarcoat stuff. I've been in the school 17 years. Our school system is broken. We need to fix it. And we're not going to fix it by standing in front of a bunch of media cameras saying we're going to get harder on discipline and not having a plan. So we need to fix it by soliciting feedback from really talented people in our backyard.
Yeah.
And start to put together a system that's going to be productive and appreciated and valued. And when you do that, the kids will come. And
Right.
when the kids come, the enrollment gets better, and then you can pay people more
funding,
respectively. You can, implement more programs, so on and so forth. So, it's all interrelated. And I don't think the general public truly understands things. I have a unique perspective because I've spent so much time in the system. I get it.
We definitely appreciate your perspective on these things. You've given a lot of insight, somebody who's been on the inside for a long time.
Yeah.
Two more questions. This one is kind of about the relationships within the school board itself. Those 5 people up there on the diocese. How do you plan to handle conflicts or disagreements within the school board? We've gone national, for some of the antics that have happened on our school board in Brevard County. What do we do about that?
Well, the school board needs to adopt a code of ethics that they themselves abide by. It's really hard to gain the respect of the public if you're fighting on live TV.
Right.
And you're disrespecting people that are coming to comment about something that they're passionate about. I've seen too many instances where board members have not been very respectful of each other and other people in the room. And so that needs to stop. When you're a school board member, you should have, one of my biggest parts of my platform is to bring decorum back.
Yeah.
We have to bring decorum back. Not everyone's going to agree. In fact, that's what makes it beautiful. We don't want 5 school board members to have the same views on everything. That's not going to make us successful. We have to have discourse, but we have to do so respectfully.
Right.
And there needs to be a code of ethics that people abide by, and it should not be it should not be allowed. And when everyone should be held to the same rules. And if a school board member is not going to act appropriately, they ought to suffer whatever consequences that come their way. A lot of these people, they don't have, they could continue doing these things, and they just wait for the media and stuff to die down, and then they just keep doing the same thing. We need to hold these people more accountable. And the way we do it is to agree that we're gonna act this, with decorum and be respectful of all points of view, and we are not going to shun people who are explaining their passionate issue. I mean, it takes a lot to go to the school board meeting, and nobody wants to speak in public.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen kids go and speak, and school board members are chewing on gum, and they're not, they're just not being respectful of the process.
Yeah.
And so we need to respect the process, and we have to understand that when the cameras are rolling and the mics that might be on, we live in that world, right? So we need to be able to be a lot more reflective of our behaviors and be respectful during the process, so that we can project to the public a respectable group of people who may not agree on all things, but we all have the same thing in common, and that is we want our kids to succeed, we want our schools to do well, and we want our community to thrive.
Who can disagree with that?
I don't know. Vote for me. District 4.
Well, that's the last question. The last question is, why should voters choose you over the other candidates? And sometimes it's a hard one to answer, but that's you're in a race.
Listen, I'm going to bring people together. I've been doing it my whole career. I am right in the middle. And I it's important for me to make this, because I get this all the time from people like, where do you lie politically? When it comes to the schools, I often say this: my political party is public education. It runs through my veins. And politically, I sit right in the middle. Sometimes I lean right, sometimes I lean left. As I get older, I get a little bit more to the right in certain things. But at the end of the day, you should choose me, because I'm not going to just fall in line with one set of ideas. I am here to make our school system better. I want to do so by bringing people together, and that includes all people of all different backgrounds and all different races and all different. I want to be more collaborative in the process, and that will that that will make our school system better. So you should pick me because I believe in bringing decorum back to the schools. We need to act with respect in the public. We need to bring back a sense of common decency. And when someone like myself is very much in the middle of a lot of these political issues, I will be able to work together with folks on both sides of the aisle to help bring our school system where it needs to be, because it has needed fixing for a long time, way beyond the last 4 years.
Right.
But the leadership in District 4 absolutely needs to change. And I hope that I'm the chosen person for that position.
Somebody made a comment recently. They were talking about all the problems that have been going on in District 4. And I said, well, without being too opinionated, what's the leadership been? Is it new leadership? Is it old leadership? And I'll just leave it at that. If you're not happy with things, the way things have been, there's only one thing you can do about that. So,
leadership needs to change.
Yeah.
And so, everyone wants to complain. And so that's another thing that people should understand. I have a lot to give up here. I mean, my company is contracted with schools, and if I win this race, I'm probably going to have to give a lot of that up.
Yeah.
I'm willing to give it up because I do what's right. And our local schools need us. I got a 10-year-old daughter in the system, and that's what drives me every day. Is I'm a family guy. I have a beautiful wife, a beautiful child. My mother lives with us too, so we're a multi-generational family. And I'm all about bringing people together, not only in my home, but also in all walks of life. And so, yeah, you can't complain. You can't sit on the sidelines. If you don't like the leadership, and I'll be very candid in saying, I don't like the leadership in District 4, and I want it to change. And I'm the right person to do so. I'm the most qualified.
I think you're certainly making your case. How can people get a hold of you? How can they find you? How can they donate to you?
On my website, fixbps.com.
Okay.
Come to my website, learn about my platform, call me. I got no problem. My phone number is 321-917-3961. Text me, call me, message me on Facebook. I try to answer everybody the best I can. I'm a very busy person. I'm very passionate about what I do for the schools. And during the business hours, sometimes I get I'm troubled to get back to folks because it's important for me to keep marching on and raising money for schools. But I don't get a lot of sleep these days because I'm always working. So, but call me, text me, message me, knock on my door. You can find out where my address is and let's have a conversation. But I'm more than happy to engage, and go to my website, fixbps.com, and don't be afraid to challenge me, because I say bring it. Let's have a conversation about how we can make our schools better. It's about our kids.
Well, Keith, thank you for joining us tonight, taking the time to come out here in the weather and come here face to face. I appreciate it. I'm sure the people appreciate hearing what you had to say today. I feel like this is a little bit more productive than traditional debates. You can kind of let people talk about what they want to talk about and kind of get into the substantive answers of some of these questions. So
absolutely, I appreciate the opportunity. I want to give you credit for reaching out to all the candidates after qualifying ended.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that process. I didn't feel like I had an opportunity to do that. I did make a late decision. I'm behind in respects to having to make up ground. I definitely need help. So if anything that I've said tonight resonates with the people watching or listening, please visit my website on Friday night. Please come out to Kiwi Tennis Club, 6:30. I'm having a meet and greet / fundraiser. I would love to see as many people come out there. That's like my second home. I love.
That's where my kids do their tennis lessons.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, yeah. So I've been a member for over 10 years, and I just love that place. And that's my first fundraiser because I started late.
Yeah.
I'm, over the next 6 or 7 weeks, I'm going to be grinding, and I could use anybody's help. So, please, if you think that I'm going to be the right candidate, which I think I am, I could use your help, support, whether it's financial support or whether it's participating in my campaign, volunteers. I've never run a campaign before. I'm not a politician, so there's a lot of a learning curve for me to go through. But the more, the better. So please contact me in any way you can. Thank you, and thanks for having me, Robert. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And again, this is open to all candidates. If you're going to be on the ballot in August, this invitation is open to you. You should have got an email from us, but if you didn't, send us a message, and we'll send you a link where you can get scheduled to come on either in person or remotely. It's up to you. And we'll give you our platform to plead your case to the voters. All right, everybody, this is Robert with the Space Coast Rocket. Stay safe tonight. No car accidents, no fires, none of that stuff, please. I don't want to cover any more bad news today. Everybody be safe tonight. Have a good night.